Imagine being married for 43 years and suddenly your spouse asks for a year of complete freedom. No contact, no rules, and the chance to form new relationships. How would you feel? This is exactly what happened to me. Here's how it all started. Oscar Anderson, the successful CEO of a family business, had planned a surprise trip to celebrate many years of marriage with his wife, Poppy. Little did he know, their life was about to change drastically. For years, Oscar had worked hard to build a successful company that had been in his family for generations. He focused on providing his family with a stable and comfortable life while also being active in the community. "Good evening, dear," Oscar said warmly as he walked into the kitchen after a long day at work. Poppy looked at him briefly from her seat at the table, her face showing no emotion. "I thought you'd be home earlier," she said. "What's with the red envelope?" "Valentine's Day was last week. I had some business to finish," Oscar replied. Setting his briefcase and the envelope down on the coffee table, he tapped the envelope gently. "We need to talk about this tonight." Oscar sat down across from her and noticed 2 glasses of red wine already poured. Beside her glass were a pen and a notebook, which piqued his curiosity. "How was your day?" Poppy asked, sounding casual, though her tone carried a certain detachment, as if she wasn't particularly interested in his answer. "It was fine," Oscar replied cautiously, his gaze drifting toward the notebook. "But I sense this isn't just about my day." Poppy sighed heavily, as if gathering the courage to speak. "You're right," she began. "Lately I've been thinking a lot about my life, about us. After organizing a reunion for my sorority sisters after so many years, losing 2 close friends to cancer, and with the kids leaving home, I've started to wonder where I'm heading." She paused, looking directly into Oscar's eyes. "And that brings me to our marriage. 43 years is a long time. Some of my sorority friends are already on their 2nd, even 3rd marriages." She leaned back in her chair and continued. "So where does that leave us? What holds us together? And more importantly, what will keep us together for the next 20 years? Oscar listened carefully, his mind racing. "I understand," he said slowly. "I've been thinking about my life too. Some men go through a midlife crisis and buy expensive cars or date younger women. I'm thankful I didn't go down that road. I have an amazing wife who keeps me grounded. And how can I make the next phase of our life something to look forward to?" Poppy smiled faintly. "That's why I love you, Oscar. You really listen. Most men wouldn't even try to understand." She took a deep breath before continuing. "But I think I have a solution. My whole life, I've lived under someone else's roof. First, it was my father's house, then the sorority dorm in college. After we married, I moved into this house, a wedding gift from your grandparents." Her voice grew more passionate. "Being with you has been wonderful, but not entirely fulfilling. I've always been the wife of the Chamber of Commerce president, the wife of the church council member, the wife of the country club president. I've always been in your shadow. You are the sun, Oscar, and I'm one of the moons orbiting around you." Oscar sat in silence, unsure where her words were leading. "I need to step out of this orbit," Poppy said firmly. "If I don't, I'm afraid I'll lose myself completely." She took a deep breath before continuing. "I want to leave. I've thought about this a lot. I need a break, freedom, call it what you want, just a year with no contact between us. I'll move out and live on my own, and during that time, we can both reflect." Oscar was shocked, trying to process what she said. "No contact at all?" he asked in disbelief. "I get that you need space, but no communication seems like too much." Poppy nodded. "It will be hard for both of us," she admitted. "I'll think about you every day, but after a year, we'll meet again and decide what to do next." Oscar stared at her bewildered. His life, once so neatly organized, was now crumbling right before his eyes. "Our lives are so closely intertwined," Poppy began, her voice calm but firm. "How can we possibly untangle them? It will feel like we're no longer husband and wife," she explained, as if it were self-evident. She continued, outlining her vision of the future. They would drift apart, each focusing on their own interests, exploring new passions. Poppy shared that she couldn't wait to take feminist courses and immerse herself in fresh perspectives. "It's like a break, but without bitterness or distrust," she said almost cheerfully. We'll still be lovers, just apart for a year. Couples in the military do it all the time. It worked for them. Oscar listened, but with every word she spoke, a cold fear crept into his heart. You mentioned you'd behave like a free woman, seeing new people. He began, his voice trembling with anxiety. Does that mean you plan to see other men? Poppy's smile was faint and indifferent. Perhaps, she admitted, keeping her tone composed. But I doubt anyone will rush to invite me to a fancy dinner or anything like that. Oscar's face tensed, his worry growing. And if you end up seeing someone, does that mean you'll, sleep with them? His voice shook as he tried to stay calm. Poppy shrugged slightly. Maybe, she said, still calm. How else can I really understand what it means to be a woman? You're the only man I've ever been with, Oscar. I just want to be on the same level as you. Oscar's face tightened, and anger started to rise in him. You seem to be forgetting something important. We're married. We made vows to share life together, to go through everything as one. I've kept my word, and I expect the same from you. Poppy's response was dismissive. Let's see how things are in a year, she said, waving off his concerns. We'll figure it out when the time comes. Oscar's patience was wearing thin. There's no guarantee you'll come back to me at all, he said, his voice rising. What if you fall in love with someone else? What if I'm no longer the one you want? Don't be so dramatic, Poppy scoffed. It's just physical intimacy, Oscar, nothing more. When we reunite after a year, you'll be grateful everything is back to normal. Don't make it out to be more than it is. I'm trying to grow, to become more confident, and that will make me a better partner for you. Oscar felt the ground slipping from under him. A year without contact? It seemed too extreme. Why can't we work this out through therapy? He suggested, trying to find a compromise. Poppy shook her head, her resolve unwavering. Talking isn't enough. I don't want to just talk about change. I need to actually live it. If we don't take a real break, I'll keep relying on you and won't be able to grow. I need to know what it's like to be apart so I can come back with a clearer mind. Oscar's voice was barely a whisper. I don't think I can handle this. But Poppy was firm. Oscar, I need to do this now. It's better to go through a year of uncertainty and stress than to stretch this out for years. When it's over, we'll be stronger. Oscar's heart clenched. When are you planning to move out? He asked, his voice hollow. I've already rented an apartment for the next year. I'll start moving this weekend, Poppy replied, as if it were just another task on her list. Oscar felt the ground completely give way beneath him. He stammered, trying to find the right words. Can't we at least talk about this in more detail before you make such a big decision? He pleaded. Poppy reached out, placing her hand on his. I'm really grateful that you're willing to discuss this. She said softly, I truly believe that in the long run, this will make our relationship better. I love you for your understanding. Oscar pulled his hand away, her words cutting deep. You're giving me far too much credit, he said painfully. I don't understand why you're doing this. And to be honest, I don't support it. It feels like this is happening no matter what I want, like my feelings don't even matter. Without saying another word, he stood, his head spinning. At the moment, I'm completely overwhelmed. I don't even know where to begin or how to handle this situation. My head is spinning like a whirlwind. Maybe we just need to sleep on it. And tomorrow evening we can sort everything out. Are you going to bed? Or are we already starting to drift apart? Not yet, darling, Poppy softly replied. I need to finish the details of my move, but I'll join you soon. With a heavy heart, Oscar climbed the stairs, feeling exhausted. He fell onto the bed, but sleep wouldn't come. His thoughts were a confusing mess of uncertainty and questions, with no clear answers. Later that night, Poppy quietly slipped into bed next to him, gently pressing her body against his. She kissed his shoulder, and he felt her warm tears soak into his skin as she whispered, I'm so sorry, Oscar. I'm sorry too, Poppy, he responded, his voice barely audible. I love you, she whispered, her words filled with emotion. After a moment's hesitation, he asked, Is this the last time I'll hear you say that? Her voice was soft, but with a glimmer of hope as she replied, I want this to make us better, not worse. I'm leaving to become a better wife, a better lover, and I will come back. The next morning, Oscar woke up earlier than usual. For the first time, he didn't make Poppy her morning coffee in bed. Instead, he left the house, got into his car, and texted his friend Tony. He needed advice, a way to make sense of the chaos around him. After Oscar explained Poppy's plan, Tony listened carefully and then looked at him seriously. Honestly, man, it sounds like she already has someone else, but she's hesitating to make the final move. She's testing how things will play out. If it works out with him, you'll be her second choice. If it doesn't, she'll come back, pretending to be renewed and ready to be the perfect wife again. You're her backup plan, Oscar, while she figures it all out. How do I stop her from using me like that? Oscar asked, feeling a knot tighten in his stomach. Let her go and do it quickly, Tony said firmly. Take control. The day she moves out, file for divorce. Make it clear that she's the one leaving. The divorce will take about 5 to 6 months. If you still want her back for some reason, just don't sign the final papers. That way, you'll be in control. Tony continued, and remember this. If she cheats and you take her back, it will be easier for her to cheat again. One more thing, stay calm. Don't lose control or yell. If things get out of hand, especially in court, losing your temper will only hurt you. Act like you agree with her decision, like you understand. As Oscar was leaving the car dealership, his eyes fell on a black convertible. On impulse, he decided to buy it. If things are going this way, I might as well get something good out of this year, he joked to Tony with a grin. When he got home that evening, Poppy was already there, her anxiety evident. Oscar, darling, where are you? She called, her voice full of worry. I missed you this morning. Can we talk? I've been thinking a lot since our conversation last night. Oscar kept his tone calm. I needed some time alone. The drive helped clear my head. I've been doing a lot of thinking, too. I can take the day off if you need me, Poppy offered, her voice softening. I know I turned your world upside down last night. I'm really worried about you, my wonderful husband. Just tell me what you need. We can talk now, at lunch or dinner, whenever. I need you to be here. I'm afraid of the path I feel like I'm heading down. Please, Oscar, I need your advice. A flicker of resentment sparked in Oscar as she suddenly sought comfort after everything she had said. Taking a deep breath, he quietly replied, I need more time, Poppy. I really need to think about this separation and what it means for us. I'll be in the study, and I'll close the door, turn off my phone, and try to figure out what to do next. Why don't we stick to our usual dinner time today? Oscar suggested. I'll take care of everything, so you can relax and not worry about cooking or cleaning. Poppy quickly agreed, grateful for the offer. However, when they later sat down at the table, an unspoken tension filled the room. During dinner, Poppy excitedly shared her plans about moving into her new apartment and the courses she wanted to take. She asked Oscar if she could take some of their furniture with her, and he briefly nodded in response. Thank you for being considerate, Poppy said with a smile. You're so kind. Oscar restrained himself from making a sarcastic remark. Instead, he said, I doubt all your things will fit in a 200 square foot apartment. What's your plan for the rest? When Poppy suggested leaving some items in the house, Oscar firmly shook his head. If you're moving, everything has to go with you. This can't be a backup option while you start a new life. Poppy's initial excitement about her decision began to fade. You're okay with me taking the bed? But now you're creating issues about the other things, she said, showing her irritation. What am I supposed to do if I can't leave them here? If you want to be independent, why are you asking me for help? Oscar responded coldly. You chose to leave and live on your own. So why do you expect me to step in now? You can always rent a storage unit. There are plenty around the city. The conversation quickly escalated into a heated argument about logistics. In the end, Oscar decided to stop beating around the bush. Oscar, I've been thinking a lot since we first talked about all this. If I have to be without a wife for a while, maybe I should consider making some changes, he said directly. Poppy looked at him in shock. What changes are you talking about? I'll be free, and I want to change my life, Oscar replied calmly. Maybe I should think about finding someone younger and more interesting instead of staying with the old version of you. Wait a minute, Poppy shouted. I'm doing this to become a better version of myself for you. There's no reason for you to start looking for someone else. I don't like your plan either, Oscar shot back. But you made it clear that my feelings don't matter. You were going to do what you wanted regardless of how I felt. You didn't care what it meant to me to have a wife who wants to be with other men. So while you do whatever you want, I'll do the same over the next year. Let's see how it all turns out. The argument escalated to the point where Poppy eventually stormed out of the house, leaving Oscar alone. A red envelope with their travel plans remained unopened on the coffee table, a reminder of what once was. In the following weeks, Oscar threw himself into work and enjoyed his newfound freedom. He redecorated the house, removing family photos and replacing them with sports memorabilia. He started grilling steaks outside and listening to jazz at full volume, things Poppy had never approved of. Meanwhile, Poppy settled into her new apartment and began taking feminist theory courses. However, the joy of this new phase in her life was overshadowed by the growing distance between her and their children, who didn't understand her choices. As time passed, both Oscar and Poppy found themselves navigating unfamiliar territory. Although he didn't want to, Oscar attended court-ordered marriage counseling sessions. The therapist explored the reasons behind their separation. Poppy insisted that she needed to rediscover herself, while Oscar remained adamant that her desire to be with other men was something he could not tolerate. During this time, Oscar started spending time with two women, Linda, a striking widow with a young son, and Sarah, a former professional swimmer now working in real estate. While he enjoyed their company, he stayed true to himself and decided to remain celibate until his marriage was officially over. On the other hand, Poppy fully immersed herself in her new life, going to clubs with her recently divorced friends and enjoying the attention of other men. But a chance meeting with a charming stranger named Nick led to unexpected results. As the year of separation was almost over, the tension between Oscar and Poppy was at its highest. Poppy thought Oscar would take her back right away, but he had changed. Her betrayal had caused a wound that wouldn't heal easily. Things got worse when their children found photos that proved Poppy had cheated, sealing the fate of their already breaking marriage. The day of truth came when Oscar and Poppy met at the lawyer's office to finalize the divorce. Poppy got there first, dressed in a new outfit and looking hopeful that there might still be a chance to get back together. Oscar arrived shortly after her and calmly placed a bright red envelope on the table. "Sorry for being late," he said quietly. After exchanging brief, polite greetings, the lawyers got right to work and presented the divorce papers. Oscar and Poppy signed the documents as previously agreed. Once the paperwork was complete, Oscar turned to her, his expression unreadable. "Do you have anything to say?" he asked, his voice calm but devoid of emotion. Poppy took a deep breath. "This year has been incredibly hard without the person I love by my side. But through these difficulties, I've grown. I've gained a deeper understanding of myself and our marriage. I need to thank you, Oscar, for giving me the space to reflect. Now more than ever, I am committed to our union. I promise you will never regret giving me another chance. I will prove my loyalty to you for the rest of my life." Oscar remained unmoved, his face betraying no reaction. When she finished, he responded in an even tone. "Trust is the foundation of everything, Poppy. Our vows were built on that, on loyalty. Without trust, love cannot exist. That's why we're here, signing these divorce papers. I can only hope that we both will be honest with ourselves." He paused before continuing. "In the past year, I've met other women, but I never crossed any lines." He looked directly at Poppy. "Can you say the same? Have you been faithful to me?" The question surprised Poppy. She blinked, startled, and quickly said, "Yes, of course, I've been faithful." Oscar's face became serious. He took the red envelope, pulled out a photograph, and placed it in front of her. The picture showed Poppy kissing Nick passionately at a nightclub. "Is this your idea of loyalty?" he asked, his tone sharp. Poppy's face flushed with embarrassment. She stammered, "It was just a kiss. It meant nothing. I didn't cheat." Oscar didn't respond immediately, instead producing another far more compromising photo. Poppy's eyes widened in shock, horror spreading across her face. "Where did you get this?" she asked in panic. "Were you spying on me?" Oscar's voice trembled with restrained anger. "Our son's girlfriend took these. She happened to be at the same club. Our son found out from her. It's a disgrace to our family." As the weight of her actions settled in, Poppy's face paled. Tears began to well in her eyes while Oscar's voice rose, filled with unbearable emotion. "Do you have any idea what it was like for our son to see his mother in a crowded club, behaving like this with some random guy? He had to endure that shame. Can you imagine what he was thinking when he saw that photo? And now you wonder why the kids won't answer your calls? After one last look at his lawyer, Oscar handed over the signed divorce papers and said firmly, "File them." Poppy's voice was desperate as she tried to explain herself. "Oscar, it was meaningless. It didn't mean anything to me or Nick. It was just physical. There was no love involved." Oscar's eyes grew colder, and his look was icy. "That's what makes it even worse, Poppy," he replied, his voice chillingly calm. "The fact that it meant nothing to you, knowing how much it meant to me. Do you even realize how deeply that hurts?" His words were the final crushing blow. "That's the cruelest thing you could have said to me," she whispered, broken. Poppy burst into tears, her body shaking with uncontrollable sobs, as she pleaded for forgiveness. "No, please no. I want to be your wife again. Please forgive me. I promise. I'll be faithful from now on. Please don't leave me. I don't want to end up like one of those women who were left alone after a divorce. Don't push me away. I beg you, forgive me." Her desperate words didn't reach him. Oscar had already stepped out the door, and her pleas gradually faded as he made his way to his BMW. The rest of the day passed in quiet solitude. With a glass of whiskey in hand and a slowly smoldering cigar nearby, he sat on the terrace, lost in thought. In the evening, his phone buzzed nonstop, calls from Poppy and messages from Linda, Sarah, and the kids. But Oscar decided to ignore them all. The next morning, Linda gently shook his shoulder, waking him from a restless sleep. "How are you doing?" she asked, looking worried. Oscar tried to smile a little. "I'm okay, I guess. Why wouldn't I be? At least you still have your sense of humor after the divorce," she said, sitting next to him and putting her arms around his shoulders. "What's next? Will I be part of what's coming?" Without thinking, Oscar said, "Of course you will. I'm here for you. Take your time. You're still processing the end of a long marriage. It's no small thing." She squeezed his hand. "I'll be here for as long as it takes." As winter set in with its crisp air and white snowflakes, Oscar slowly started to adjust to his new reality. He declined an invitation to meet friends over the weekend, feeling the need to be alone and reflect. On Saturday morning, Sarah appeared at his doorstep. "I heard it hasn't been easy," she said kindly, "but at least it's behind you now." Oscar nodded and invited her inside. They sat on the couch, and after a long silence, Sarah took a deep breath. "There's something I need to tell you," she began quietly. "I've been meaning to say this for a while, but you had so much on your plate." She hesitated before continuing, "And honestly, I didn't want to ruin our time together." Oscar tensed, bracing himself for what was coming. "I'm engaged," Sarah confessed softly. "We've been together for 3 years." Oscar blinked, stunned. "What? Why did you hide this from me?" Sarah explained that her feelings for him were always about friendship, not romance. "That doesn't change how much I care about you as my best friend," she said. "I love you, but not in the way you might think. I can't marry you, but if he's okay with it, I'd like to keep our friendship the same." As Sarah's words sunk in, Oscar felt a surprising sense of relief. The stress of having to choose between Sarah and Linda disappeared. "Thank you for being honest," he said, squeezing her hand. "You're my best friend, and I'm glad we can stay that way." In the weeks that followed, Oscar focused on healing and moving forward. He spent more time with both Sarah and Linda, grateful for their constant support. Meanwhile, Poppy was having a hard time adjusting to her new life. She had moved into a smaller apartment in a less nice area, and her money situation was tough because of the divorce. She tried to reconnect with the kids, but they were still upset and distant. Poppy was diagnosed with severe depression and ended up losing her job because she often missed work. Her boss told her, "I'm sorry, but we need someone reliable. You're fired." The loneliness felt heavier for her. The kids kept avoiding her, and her friends did too. Work had been her lifeline, but now that was gone. "What a fool I am," she often whispered to herself. But it was too late to change anything now. She had made her choice. Second story. I, 25M, was dating a woman, 23F, we'll call Sarah. We had been together for about a year and a half, and things were going well. We enjoyed each other's company, supported each other's dreams, and even talked about our future together. Sarah was smart, ambitious, and really beautiful. I thought she might be the one. Sarah was in her last year of nursing school, and her schedule was really busy. She had long nights at the hospital, tons of studying, and exams all the time. I tried to be supportive, cooking for her, and keeping her company while she studied. One night, she mentioned needing to go to a late-night study group. I was okay with it because it had become a routine, but that night, I felt something was off. I couldn't shake this gut feeling. Later, my curiosity got the better of me, maybe not my best moment. I checked her location on my phone since we shared it. To my surprise, she was at a bar downtown instead of the library where she usually studied. This shocked me because she rarely drinks. My heart dropped. I called her, but it went straight to voicemail. So, I decided to go see for myself. When I got there, I looked through the window and saw her laughing and holding hands with another guy. It felt like my heart shattered. I really saw a future with her. I confronted her, and at first she tried to deny it. But the evidence was right there. Eventually, she admitted she had been seeing this guy for a few weeks. She said she felt neglected because I didn't understand how hard school was. I was heartbroken. I had always been supportive, and this was how she treated me. We broke up that night, and it was painful and messy, leaving me with trust issues I'm still working on. The worst part? A few months later, I ran into her with the same guy, and they were both wearing scrubs. He was in her nursing program. The study group was just a cover story. It was sickening. I'm still healing, but I'm learning to move on. This experience taught me a hard lesson about trust and betrayal, but it also reminded me that I deserve someone who will be honest and loyal, no matter what challenges come our way. Welcome to Relation Tales. Please like this video and subscribe Relation Tales. Let's begin. When Olivia and I tied the knot, I believed we had sealed a love story straight out of a fairy tale. We were young, brimming with dreams, and completely enamored with the idea of building a life together. But reality has a way of intruding on even the most romantic ideals. Bills piled up, responsibilities grew heavier, and though I worked tirelessly at my job, the lifestyle we had envisioned seemed farther away with every passing month. That's when Marcus stepped into the picture. Marcus had been a close friend of Olivia's family for as long as I could remember. He was older, worldly, and exuded a confidence that made him seem invincible. When he offered Olivia a position at his company, it felt like a gift from the heavens. "You're talented, Olivia," he said one evening over dinner. "It's a waste not to have you out there making your mark." I admired him for extending this olive branch. Olivia was ecstatic. Her eyes lit up at the prospect of contributing financially and finding purpose beyond our home. I was thrilled for her, or at least that's what I told myself. She dove into her new role with fervor, often coming home with glowing stories of her day. "Marcus is a tough boss," she'd admit with a laugh, "but he's fair. He pushes everyone to be their best." At first, I didn't mind the extra hours she dedicated to work. I believed in supporting her ambitions. When I teased her about the late nights, she'd wave it off, saying, "It's just the adjustment period, Leo. Things will settle soon." But they didn't. Over time, I noticed small but significant changes. Olivia started dressing differently. Sharp blazers, sleek heels, a wardrobe that seemed too polished for her usual modest tastes. "It's just for work," she'd explain, dismissing my raised eyebrow. Then came the phone calls. She'd excuse herself during dinner, murmuring about deadlines and urgent updates. "It's Marcus again," she'd say with an apologetic smile. "He's pushing us hard on this new campaign. Can it wait until morning?" I'd ask, only half joking. "You don't understand, Leo," she'd respond, her tone defensive. "Marcus has high expectations. I can't let him down." Her words stung more than I let on. I wanted to trust her, to believe that her devotion to work was temporary, but doubts began to creep in. The tipping point came during a family barbecue. Marcus joined us, charming as ever, making everyone laugh with his stories. At one point, he raised a glass and a toast. "Leo, you're a lucky man," he said, his gaze lingering on Olivia longer than necessary. "She's one of a kind." The toast Marcus made lingered with me long after the barbecue ended. "She's one of a kind," he'd said, with a look that felt too familiar, too personal. At the time, I brushed it off, telling myself I was reading into things. But something about his tone, the way he seemed to bask in Olivia's attention, planted a seed of unease in my mind. Olivia, on the other hand, seemed unaffected. Marcus was just being kind, she said when I mentioned it later. He's always supportive. Supportive. That word gnawed at me. It wasn't that I doubted Olivia's loyalty, at least not yet, but I began to question Marcus's intentions. Was his support really about helping her? Or was there something more beneath the surface? The changes in Olivia became harder to ignore. She was no longer just tired after work. She seemed distracted even when she was home. The intimacy we once shared, those late-night conversations and stolen glances, had been replaced by short, clipped exchanges. She'd respond to my questions with vague answers, her eyes flickering to her phone as if waiting for the next notification. One night, as she sat on the couch scrolling through her emails, I tried to bridge the gap. "Liv, do you want to watch that show we started last month? We never finished it." Without looking up, she replied, "Maybe later. I have to send a few emails for Marcus before tomorrow's meeting." "Emails at 9 o'clock?" I asked, trying to keep my voice light. She finally looked at me, her expression tinged with frustration. "You don't get it, Leo. This job is demanding. If I don't keep up, I'll fall behind." As weeks turned into months, the distance between us widened. Olivia's late nights became the norm, and our conversations grew increasingly superficial. I felt like an outsider in my own home, a guest in a marriage that had once been my safe haven. I tried to convince myself that I was overthinking things, that every relationship went through rough patches. But my doubts refused to fade. One night, I decided to surprise her at the office. She had texted earlier, saying she'd be working late, and I thought maybe a cup of her favorite coffee would brighten her evening. When I arrived, the office was quiet, almost deserted. Her desk was empty, the computer screen dark. A cleaning staff member passed by, and I stopped him. "Excuse me, do you know if Olivia is still here?" He looked at me, puzzled. "Oh, she left hours ago." My stomach twisted. When Olivia came home that night, I confronted her. "Where were you?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "At work, of course," she replied casually, dropping her bag on the counter. "I stopped by the office," I said, watching her reaction. Her face faltered for the briefest moment before she recovered. "We wrapped up early," she said smoothly. "I grabbed dinner with some colleagues afterward." "Sorry, I should have let you know." Her explanation was plausible, even reasonable, but the doubt in my chest had taken root. The cracks in our relationship became impossible to ignore after that night. Olivia continued to spend long hours at the office, often returning home well past dinner. I began to notice how much her conversations revolved around Marcus, his expectations, his deadlines, his demands. "He's such a perfectionist," she'd say, shaking her head. "But it's only because he wants the best out of us." I wanted to believe her, to trust that her dedication was about work and nothing more. But there were moments, small, fleeting moments, that chipped away at my faith. Like when Marcus called during dinner, and Olivia excused herself to take the call in another room. Or when she mentioned staying late for yet another meeting, her tone almost too casual. One evening, while putting away laundry, I found a receipt in Olivia's coat pocket. It was from a high-end restaurant downtown, dated the night she had claimed to be working late. When I asked her about it, she didn't miss a beat. "Oh, that was from a team dinner. Marcus insisted we all go out to celebrate finishing the campaign." "Funny," I said, holding up the receipt. "There's only one entree and one drink listed here." Her cheeks flushed, and for a moment I thought she might confess. But instead, she deflected. "You're reading too much into this, Leo. It's just a receipt." Determined to get to the bottom of things, I began to pay closer attention to Olivia's behavior. The tension in our home was palpable, but I tried to keep up appearances for the sake of our daughter Mia. She was too young to understand the strain between her parents, and I wanted to shield her from the growing turmoil. One night, after Olivia had gone to bed, I found myself staring at her phone on the nightstand. It buzzed quietly, a notification lighting up the screen for a brief moment. I knew it was wrong, but the urge to look was overwhelming. Unlocking her phone, I hesitated for a moment before scrolling through her messages. My heart pounded as I found a thread between her and Marcus. The texts were casual at first, discussions about work and deadlines. But as I scrolled further, the messages became more personal. "Last night was great. Can't wait to see you again," one read. Another said, Leo doesn't suspect anything, right? My breath caught in my throat. The confirmation I had been dreading was right there in front of me. The messages on Olivia's phone were like shards of glass, piercing through every ounce of trust I'd placed in her. My fingers trembled as I held the device, rereading the words to ensure I wasn't misinterpreting. Each message was a dagger, twisting deeper with the realization that this wasn't just a fleeting mistake. It was deliberate. It was betrayal. I sat there, clutching her phone, the weight of my discovery suffocating. The love we had built, the years of shared dreams and sacrifices, now felt like a cruel illusion. The sound of water running in the bathroom told me Olivia was still in the shower. My mind raced. Should I confront her now? Or wait and gather more evidence? When she finally emerged, her hair wrapped in a towel, she stopped mid-step at the sight of me sitting on the edge of the bed. Her smile faded when she saw her phone in my hand. "What's this?" I asked, my voice low but steady. Her eyes darted to the phone, then back to me. "Leo, I can explain." "Explain?" I interrupted, the anger bubbling just beneath the surface. "Explain what, Olivia? The text where Marcus talks about last night? Or the part where he asks if I suspect anything?" She froze, her face draining of color. "It's not what you think," she stammered, her voice trembling. I stood, pacing the room as the fury overtook me. "Don't insult me by saying it's nothing. How long has this been going on, Olivia? How long have you been lying to me?" Tears welled in her eyes, but I felt no sympathy. "Not now." Olivia sank onto the bed, her hands covering her face as she sobbed. "It didn't mean anything," she whispered, her voice muffled. "Didn't mean anything?" I snapped, my voice rising. "So all those late nights, all those lies, they were meaningless? Do you even hear yourself right now?" Her sobs grew louder, but I didn't stop. "You made a choice, Olivia. Over and over again. You chose him. And what about Mia? What about our family?" She looked up at me, her tear-streaked face full of regret. "I was lonely, Leo," she admitted, her voice breaking. "You were so busy with work, and I felt invisible. Marcus, he made me feel seen." Her words cut deeper than any blade could. "So, your solution was to destroy our family?" I asked bitterly. "To betray me?" "I'm sorry," she cried, reaching for my hand, but I stepped back. "Sorry doesn't fix this," I said coldly. "Sorry doesn't undo the lies." The next few days were a blur of anger, sadness, and disbelief. Olivia tried to apologize, to explain, but I couldn't bear to hear it. I threw myself into work, trying to distract myself from the chaos at home. When I wasn't at work, I spent as much time as possible with Mia. She was the one bright spot in this nightmare, her laughter a reminder of what I was fighting to protect. But Olivia's betrayal lingered like a storm cloud. Every time I saw her, the weight of what she had done bore down on me. I couldn't look at her without seeing the messages, without hearing Marcus's smug words in my mind. One evening, I decided I couldn't stay in the dark any longer. I needed to know the full extent of Olivia's betrayal. I hired a private investigator to gather evidence. It felt extreme, but I needed to protect myself and Mia if this spiraled further. The investigator was thorough, combing through phone records, credit card statements, and even surveillance footage. What he uncovered confirmed my worst fears. Olivia and Marcus had been meeting in secret for months. The high-end dinners, the hotel stays. It was all there, documented in painful detail. When he handed me the file, I felt sick. The photos, the receipts, the timelines. It was undeniable. I had the truth now, but it didn't make the betrayal any easier to bear. Armed with the evidence, I confronted Olivia again. This time, I didn't let her deflect or dodge my questions. "I know everything," I said, tossing the file onto the dining table. She hesitated, her eyes flicking to the folder. "What is this?" "Proof," I said bluntly. "Proof of what you've been doing behind my back. The dinners, the hotels, it's all there, Olivia. You can't lie your way out of this." Her shoulders slumped as she sat down, flipping through the pages. Tears filled her eyes, but I refused to let myself feel pity. "I never meant for it to go this far," she whispered. "But it did," I replied coldly. "And now I have to deal with the mess you've created." As the reality of divorce loomed, I felt a mix of emotions, grief, anger, and a faint sense of relief. I couldn't live with Olivia's betrayal, but I also feared what this would mean for Mia. The day I filed for divorce was both liberating and gut-wrenching. I'd spent sleepless nights wrestling with the decision, but in the end, I knew it was the only way forward. Mia deserved stability, and I deserved to reclaim my dignity. When I handed Olivia the divorce papers, she looked at me with a mixture of shock and despair. "Leo, please, we can fix this," she said, her voice trembling. I shook my head. "There's nothing to fix, Olivia. You made your choices, and this is the consequence." "But what about Mia?" she asked, tears streaming down her face. "What about our family?" "Our family?" I repeated bitterly. "You didn't think about our family when you were sneaking around with Marcus. Don't pretend this is about Mia now." The conversation ended with her sobbing as I walked away. It was the beginning of a new chapter, one filled with uncertainty, but also the faint hope of a fresh start. The fallout from Olivia's actions rippled through every aspect of our lives. Friends and family who had once admired our relationship were now tiptoeing around us, unsure of what to say or how to act. My parents, who had always been supportive of Olivia, were devastated when they learned the truth. "I never thought she was capable of this," my mother said, shaking her head. "Neither did I," I replied, the bitterness evident in my voice. Mia, thankfully, was too young to fully understand what was happening. I did my best to shield her from the tension at home, but she could sense that something was wrong. "Why isn't Mommy smiling anymore?" she asked one evening, her innocent question cutting me to the core. "She's just tired, sweetheart," I said, forcing a smile. "But don't worry, everything will be okay." While I focused on creating a stable environment for Mia, Olivia's life began to unravel. News of her affair with Marcus had spread beyond our circle, reaching her workplace. Marcus's reputation as a charismatic leader quickly crumbled under the weight of the scandal. The company's board of directors was furious. Evelyn, a senior board member, wasted no time in calling for an investigation. "This isn't just a personal issue," she said during an emergency meeting. "This is a breach of trust and a stain on our company's image." Marcus tried to downplay the situation, but the evidence against him was overwhelming. Within weeks, he was forced to resign, his departure framed as a mutual decision to protect the company's reputation. Olivia, meanwhile, became the subject of whispers and judgment at work. Once respected for her dedication, she was now seen as a liability. Her colleagues avoided her, and her once bright career prospects dimmed overnight. With Marcus gone, the cracks in his personal life began to show. His wife, Sarah, had been unaware of his affair until the scandal broke. When she found out, she was devastated. Sarah wasted no time filing for divorce, taking their 2 teenage sons with her. The once polished image of the perfect family was shattered, leaving Marcus alone and disgraced. As for Olivia, she tried to salvage what little she could of her reputation. She sought therapy, hoping to understand why she had made such destructive choices. One day, she called me, her voice hesitant. "Leo, I'm in therapy," she said. "I know it doesn't change what I've done, but I want to be better, for Mia and for myself." I didn't respond immediately. Her efforts to atone were admirable, but they couldn't erase the damage she had caused. "I'm glad you're trying," I said finally, keeping my tone neutral. Olivia's attempts to rebuild her relationship with Mia were slow and painstaking. Mia, though young, had sensed the tension between us and was wary of her mother's efforts. "I don't want to go with Mommy," she said one afternoon as Olivia arrived to pick her up. "It's okay, sweetheart," I said gently. "She just wants to spend time with you." Mia reluctantly agreed, but her interactions with Olivia remained strained. Watching from the sidelines, I felt a mixture of sadness and relief. I wanted Mia to have a relationship with her mother, but I couldn't forget what Olivia had done to us. As Olivia worked to repair her bond with Mia, I began to focus on rebuilding my own life. I reconnected with old friends, many of whom I hadn't seen in years. One friend, Ethan, suggested we join a local hiking group. "Fresh air and exercise are the best therapy," he said with a grin. Reluctantly, I agreed, and to my surprise, the experience was cathartic. The physical challenge of climbing steep trails and the camaraderie of the group helped me release some of the anger and pain I'd been carrying. At home, I rediscovered my love for woodworking. The rhythmic sound of the saw and the scent of freshly cut wood provided a sense of peace I hadn't felt in months. I started with small projects, a bookshelf for Mia's room, a new coffee table for the living room. But as my confidence grew, so did my ambitions. Each finished piece felt like a step toward reclaiming my sense of self. As weeks turned into months, life started to take on a new rhythm. Mia and I created our own routines, filling the house with laughter and warmth. Friday nights became our movie nights, with popcorn and animated films. Saturday mornings were dedicated to pancake breakfasts, where Mia insisted on flipping the pancakes herself. These small rituals reminded me of what truly mattered. While my heart still bore the scars of betrayal, I found solace in being there for Mia. Her laughter was my anchor, her joy my purpose. One Saturday, as we were cleaning up after breakfast, Mia asked, "Do you think Mommy will ever come back home?" The question caught me off guard. I crouched to her level, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Mommy and I both love you very much, Mia," I said carefully. "But sometimes, even when people love each other, they can't live together anymore. That doesn't mean we love you any less." She nodded, her eyes searching mine. "I just want everyone to be happy." Her words stayed with me long after she'd run off to play. While Mia adjusted to the new normal, Olivia continued to reach out. She sent letters to Mia, apologizing for the mistakes she had made and expressing her love. At first, Mia was hesitant to respond, but over time, she began writing back. One evening, after Mia had gone to bed, Olivia called. Her voice was subdued, filled with regret. "Thank you for not keeping me from her, Leo. I know I don't deserve it." I hesitated before responding. Mia deserves to have both her parents in her life. "But that doesn't mean we're okay, Olivia. There's still a lot to work through." "I understand," she said softly. "I just want you to know that I'm trying to be better." Her words were genuine, but I knew that rebuilding trust, if it was even possible, would take much more than words. Meanwhile, Marcus's life had unraveled completely. His forced resignation and public scandal made him a pariah in the business world. His wife, Sarah, finalized their divorce, taking the family home and full custody of their sons. Rumors swirled about Marcus's attempts to start over in a new city, but his reputation followed him like a shadow. I'd be lying if I said I didn't feel a grim sense of satisfaction. Marcus had built his life on arrogance and deceit, and now he was paying the price. But despite my anger, I also felt a pang of pity. He had lost everything: his career, his family, his social standing. He was a cautionary tale of what happens when you let selfishness consume you. At work, I threw myself into new projects, determined to channel my pain into productivity. My boss noticed my renewed focus and offered me a leadership position on a major account. "This is a chance to prove yourself, Leo," he said. "I think you're ready." The promotion was a welcome distraction and a validation of my efforts. For the first time in months, I felt like I was regaining control of my life. One day, Ethan invited me to join him for a weekend retreat with the hiking group. "It's not just about hiking," he explained. "It's about resetting your perspective." The retreat, nestled in a mountain valley, was exactly what I needed. The physical challenge of climbing steep trails and the serenity of the natural surroundings helped me release some of the anger I'd been holding on to. One evening, as we sat around a campfire, Ethan turned to me. "You've been through hell, Leo, but I've seen you fight your way back. That takes strength." His words stayed with me, a reminder that I wasn't defined by what had happened to me, but by how I chose to move forward. Back home, I continued to focus on woodworking. The projects grew more ambitious: a dining table, a set of chairs, even a custom bed frame for Mia's room. Each completed piece felt like a small victory, a tangible symbol of progress. Mia loved watching me work, often sitting on a stool nearby with her crayons and paper. "Can I help, Daddy?" she'd ask, her eyes bright with curiosity. "Of course," I'd reply, handing her a small piece of sandpaper. "Just don't tell Grandma I let you use tools." Her laughter filled the workshop, a reminder of the joy that still existed in our lives. Olivia's efforts to rebuild her relationship with Mia began to bear fruit. During one visit, I overheard Mia say, "I forgive you, Mommy, but I don't want you to hurt Daddy again." The simplicity of her words carried a profound weight. Olivia nodded, her eyes filled with tears. I promise, Mia. I'll do everything I can to make things right. It wasn't a full reconciliation, but it was a step forward. As I watched Olivia work to repair her bond with Mia, I felt a mixture of relief and closure. She was making an effort, and that was enough for me. But I also knew that our marriage was over, and I was okay with that. The next step was finalizing the divorce. The process was emotionally taxing, but I approached it with a sense of purpose. I was fighting not just for myself, but for Mia's future. With the divorce finalized, I began to entertain the possibility of moving on. I wasn't looking for anything serious, but I allowed myself to explore the idea of happiness with someone new. One evening, I met a woman named Clara at a friend's gathering. She was kind, funny, and easy to talk to. We exchanged numbers, and over time, our conversations became a bright spot in my day. As Clara and I grew closer, I took things slowly, mindful of Mia's needs and my own healing process. Clara understood my situation and never pressured me for more than I was ready to give. For the first time in a long time, I felt hopeful, not just for the future, but for the person I was becoming. Looking back, the journey had been long and painful, but it had also been transformative. The betrayal had left scars, but they no longer defined me. I had built a new life for myself and Mia, one filled with love, laughter, and resilience. Olivia remained a part of Mia's life, but our paths had diverged, and I was at peace with that. As I stood in the workshop, sanding the finishing touches on a new project, Mia ran in, holding a drawing she had made. "It's for you, Daddy," she said, her smile lighting up the room. I took the drawing, my heart full of gratitude. "Thank you, sweetheart. It's perfect." In that moment, I knew I had finally found my way forward, and it was beautiful. The warm glow of the living room lights greeted me as I stepped through the front door, shrugging off the weight of another long workday. Friday evenings were a ritual of comfort, unwinding with Mary, my wife, as we planned the weekend ahead. But tonight was different. Something in the air felt heavier, charged with an unspoken tension I couldn't yet place. I set my bag down by the couch and reached for the beer I'd left chilling in the fridge that morning. The sound of the cap twisting off echoed through the quiet house. As I settled into my usual spot on the couch, Mary walked in, her expression unusually serious. She sat across from me, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. "We need to talk," she said, her voice steady but firm. Those 4 words sent a jolt through my chest. "We need to talk." The words lingered in the air, heavy and foreboding. I studied Mary's face, searching for some clue about what she was about to say. She looked composed, her golden hair neatly tied back, but her eyes betrayed a flicker of uncertainty. I placed the beer bottle on the coffee table, leaning forward slightly. "All right," I said, my voice even. "What's on your mind?" She hesitated, her fingers nervously twisting the thin, silver bracelet on her wrist. "David, before we start a family, I've been thinking about something important." The way she framed it made my pulse quicken. Family had been our shared dream, the natural next step after 5 years of marriage. Her sudden hesitation felt like a crack in the foundation of everything we'd built. "What is it?" I asked, forcing calm into my tone. Her eyes finally met mine, a strange mix of determination and fear. "I want to explore other options, just for a little while, before we commit fully to starting a family." Her words hit me like a blow. For a moment, I thought I'd misheard her. "Other options?" I repeated slowly, trying to keep my voice steady. Mary nodded, her hands still fidgeting. "I mean dating, seeing other people, just temporarily." The silence that followed was deafening. I sat there, frozen, as her words sank in. She wanted to date other men, while staying married to me. The absurdity of it was almost laughable, but the anger bubbling inside me drowned out any trace of humor. "You're joking," I said, my voice low and clipped. She shook her head. "David, I need to do this. I need to be sure about us, about everything, before we take the next step. And this is your solution?" I snapped, leaning back in disbelief. "Dating other people while staying married? What am I supposed to do? Just sit here and wait for you to come back?" Her expression hardened, a flicker of defiance crossing her face. I'm being honest with you, she said. Isn't that what matters? I pressed her for an explanation, demanding to know where this idea had come from. At first, she hesitated, but then she admitted it. Margaret. Margaret? I repeated incredulously. Your co-worker who's been divorced 4 times? She's been through a lot, Mary defended weakly. She knows what it's like to have doubts and ignore them. She told me it's better to address those feelings now rather than let them grow. I stared at her, struggling to process what I was hearing. Margaret's influence had always seemed harmless, a little overbearing at worst. But now it felt insidious. So you're taking advice from someone who's failed at every relationship she's ever had, I said, unable to keep the bitterness out of my tone. Mary's jaw tightened, but she didn't respond. The discussion spiraled from there, every word driving a wedge deeper between us. I made it clear where I stood, that I wouldn't tolerate this kind of betrayal. If you want to explore, I said coldly, you won't be doing it under this roof. This house is mine, Mary. My parents gave it to me, and I decide who lives here. Her eyes widened, the sharpness of my words catching her off guard. You can't mean that, she said, her voice wavering. I mean every word, I replied firmly. If you walk out that door to pursue this idea, don't expect to walk back in. For a moment, she looked like she might back down. But then her chin lifted, and the determination returned to her eyes. I need to do this, she said quietly. The hours that followed were a blur of tension. Mary prepared for her night out, her movements deliberate and confident, as if she were convincing herself she was doing the right thing. By 8 p.m., she came downstairs dressed to impress. The sleek black dress hugged her figure, and her makeup was flawless. She looked stunning, like the woman I'd fallen in love with. But tonight, her beauty only deepened the sting of her betrayal. I couldn't resist a sarcastic remark as she grabbed her clutch. Did you forget your suitcases? I said. You won't be coming back if you leave. She shot me a sharp look, but her response was calm. It's just one night, David. I'll be back in the morning. My voice was hard as steel when I replied. If you walk out that door, I'm changing the locks. She hesitated for a fraction of a second before dismissing me with a wave. If you love me, you'll let me do this. I let out a bitter laugh. If you loved me, you wouldn't be going. The sound of a car horn outside signaled Margaret's arrival. Mary didn't look back as she walked out the door, leaving the house, and me behind. But she didn't know everything. Months earlier, I had installed tracking apps on her phone. They were meant as a safeguard, a way to keep tabs on her during late-night drives or business trips. Now, they would serve a different purpose. As soon as the door closed, I activated the microphone on her phone. Margaret's voice came through, cheerful and encouraging. He's probably furious, Margaret said with a laugh. But don't worry. A little charm and some extra attention will win him back. Their casual conversation only fueled the anger burning inside me. While they laughed and joked, I set my own plan into motion. The house felt eerily quiet after Mary left, but my mind was anything but. I moved methodically, channeling my anger into action. The first thing I did was change the locks, ensuring she couldn't just waltz back in whenever she pleased. Then, I reprogrammed the garage door opener, cutting off her access entirely. Next, I turned to her belongings. Every piece of clothing, every personal item, every last trace of her in this house. I packed it all. Her toiletries, shoes, jewelry, and even the little trinkets she'd collected over the years were stuffed into her car. By the time I was done, the house felt emptier, but the weight in my chest had lessened. I wasn't done. I logged into our joint bank accounts and withdrew half of the funds, my rightful share. Then, I canceled the shared credit cards and transferred the bulk of our investments into accounts solely under my name. It wasn't just about protecting myself. It was about ensuring she couldn't manipulate me further. As I worked, I kept an ear on the conversation between Mary and Margaret. Their words cut deep, each one reinforcing the betrayal I already felt. Margaret reassured Mary that this was just a phase, that I'd come around eventually. They laughed about how Mary could win me back with a little charm and manipulation. The more I listened, the more resolute I became. This wasn't just about one night. It was about ensuring she understood the consequences of her choices. I sat at my desk, headphones on, as I tracked Mary's movements through the app. She and Margaret had gone to a club downtown, a place I knew well from years of living in the city. Using the app's audio feature, I listened to snippets of their conversation. "Tonight's about fun," Margaret said. "Forget about David. You deserve this." Mary laughed, her tone light and carefree. "You're right. I just need to let loose for once." Her words stung more than I wanted to admit. For her, this was an adventure. For me, it was a betrayal of everything we had built together. As the night wore on, I heard snippets of her interactions with another man. The flirtatious tone in her voice was unmistakable. It was as if she'd forgotten she was married, or worse, didn't care. I recorded everything: audio clips, location data, even video snippets from the app. Each piece of evidence was a reminder of the person she had become, a person I barely recognized. By the time Mary returned to Margaret's house, I had already formulated a plan. The weekend ahead would be pivotal, a chance to prepare myself emotionally and financially for the inevitable fallout. I spent Saturday morning reviewing the recordings from the night before. Hearing her flirt with another man, laughing and joking as if I didn't exist, was painful, but it steeled my resolve. I reached out to a lawyer I trusted, laying out the situation in detail. "I want to protect myself," I said. "Whatever steps I need to take, I'm ready." The lawyer's advice was clear: document everything, secure my assets, and prepare for the possibility of a contentious divorce. I spent the rest of the day diving into the logistics, gathering financial records, consolidating accounts, and preparing a draft of the divorce paperwork. Every action felt like a step toward reclaiming control of my life. That afternoon, I turned my attention to my truck. It had been a reliable workhorse over the years, but it needed some love. Replacing the engine, swapping out the transmission, and giving it a fresh matte black paint job became my escape, a way to focus my energy on something productive. Each bolt I tightened, each piece I replaced felt like a small victory. By the time I was done, the truck looked brand new. It was a reminder that even broken things could be rebuilt, stronger and better than before. When Friday evening rolled around, I decided it was time to treat myself. After a long shower and a fresh shave, I dressed in a black button-down shirt, new Levi's, and boots made from rattlesnake leather. A dab of cologne completed the look. I headed to an upscale steakhouse downtown, determined to enjoy the night on my terms. The T-bone steak, baked potato, and crisp salad were perfection, but the real satisfaction came afterward. As I left the restaurant, I checked the app and confirmed that Mary and Margaret were at the same club as before. I smiled to myself, knowing the timing couldn't be better. I parked a few spots away from Mary's car, taking a moment to gather my thoughts. Tonight wasn't about confrontation. It was about showing her that I wasn't sitting at home, waiting for her to return. As I walked into the club, the familiar thrum of bass greeted me, mingling with the chatter of the crowd. It didn't take long to spot Margaret. She was seated at a corner table, her gaze darting toward the dance floor where Mary was twirling with another man. "Margaret," I said smoothly as I approached, holding a drink in my hand. What a pleasant surprise. Her eyes widened in shock. "David? What are you doing here?" "Same as you," I said with a casual smile. "Since Mary moved out, I figured I'd check this place out and have some fun." Margaret's unease was palpable, her perfectly styled hair and confident demeanor faltering under the weight of my sudden appearance. She laughed nervously, glancing toward the dance floor where Mary was still obliviously enjoying herself. "Fun, huh?" she said, trying to regain control of the conversation. "Absolutely," I replied with a grin. "And speaking of fun, care to dance?" She hesitated for a moment, her eyes scanning the room as if looking for an excuse. But ultimately, she nodded, her pride unwilling to let her decline. The music was lively, the kind that got everyone moving, and I made sure to keep my energy high, drawing attention from the surrounding tables. Margaret played along, but I could sense her discomfort growing. When the song transitioned into a slower beat, I didn't give her a chance to retreat. I placed a hand gently on her lower back, leading her into the rhythm of the song. She stiffened slightly, but before she could protest, I saw Mary approaching from the corner of my eye. Mary's expression shifted as she spotted us. Her carefree laughter faded, replaced by a look of shock and, eventually, anger. She stormed over to the table, her steps quick and purposeful, her heels clicking against the floor. "David," she said, her voice sharp, "What are you doing here?" I didn't miss a beat. "Dancing," I said lightly, releasing Margaret and taking a step back. "It's a great place, isn't it?" Mary's eyes flicked to Margaret, then back to me, her fury barely contained. "You're trying to sabotage me," she accused. I chuckled, shaking my head. "Sabotage? No, Mary. I'm just enjoying myself. Just like you are." She opened her mouth to retort, but I didn't give her the chance. "If you'll excuse me, I'm going to get another drink," I said, brushing past her. I spent the rest of the evening making my presence known. Margaret, clearly rattled, tried to maintain her composure, but her attempts to keep Mary calm were failing miserably. Meanwhile, I struck up casual conversations with others at the bar, making it clear that I wasn't the heartbroken husband Mary had likely painted me to be. Every time I caught her throwing glances my way, I made a point of smiling, as if her presence didn't bother me in the slightest. It was a small but effective way of taking back the control she had tried to strip away. When the club began winding down, I decided to leave on my own terms. Margaret had already made her way back to their table, trying to console a clearly frustrated Mary. I approached them with a casual air, my jacket slung over one shoulder. "Well, ladies, it's been fun," I said, "but I think I've had my fill for the night. Have a good one." Mary's glare could have burned a hole through steel, but I didn't linger to see her response. I walked out of the club, feeling lighter than I had in weeks. The aftermath of that night began to ripple through Mary's world in unexpected ways. Margaret, once her staunch supporter, started to distance herself. The cracks in their alliance were visible during their phone conversations, which I continued to monitor through the tracking app. "Why did you let him get to you?" Margaret snapped during one exchange. "I didn't know he'd show up." Mary shot back, her frustration evident. "You said this would be easy." Their bickering was music to my ears. The confidence they'd shared at the beginning of this experiment was slowly crumbling, and I relished every moment of it. I decided to push the narrative further. Over the next few weeks, I began reaching out to some of Mary's single colleagues, inviting them out for casual dinners and drinks. While most were hesitant at first due to my marital status, I reassured them that we were separated, which wasn't far from the truth. Word of my outings quickly spread through Mary's workplace, creating tension between her and Margaret. The very advice Margaret had given her now seemed to backfire, as the office gossip painted a picture of my newfound social life. Mary's anger became a constant presence in her conversations, her complaints about me growing more heated with each passing day. But I didn't stop. Each outing, each event, was another step in reclaiming my independence. The tipping point came when Margaret confronted Mary directly. Their conversation, overheard through the tracking app, was a masterpiece of chaos. "Do you even know what you're doing?" Margaret demanded. "This was supposed to be about you finding clarity, not dragging me into your mess. You're the one who told me to do this." Mary snapped. "I didn't tell you to make me the villain." Margaret shot back. Their argument escalated, each blaming the other for the fallout. By the end of the call, it was clear their friendship was hanging by a thread. As Mary's world continued to unravel, I turned my focus toward the final act of my plan, the divorce. With my lawyer's help, I finalized the paperwork and began preparing for what I knew would be a contentious process. I decided to hold nothing back. Mary had made her choices, and it was time for her to face the consequences. By the time the divorce paperwork was ready, I had built an ironclad case. Every recording, every bank statement, every detail of her behavior was meticulously documented. My lawyer assured me that we had everything we needed to protect my assets and secure a favorable outcome. Mary, on the other hand, seemed oblivious to the storm brewing. Through the tracking app, I caught snippets of her conversations with Margaret and others, where she spoke of our eventual reconciliation as if it were inevitable. "He'll come around," she said confidently during one call. "He always does." Her words fueled my resolve. She truly believed she could walk back into my life as if nothing had happened. But I was determined to show her that actions had consequences. The evening of our 5th wedding anniversary arrived, and with it, the final act of my carefully orchestrated plan. I had invited friends and family over for what I described as a celebratory gathering. Everyone assumed it was a party to mark the milestone, and I let them believe that. Mary arrived fashionably late, dressed in an elegant gown, her demeanor exuding confidence. She smiled at the guests, basking in the attention, as if the night were hers to claim. But as the evening progressed, her confidence began to waver. My interactions with our mutual friends were warm and effortless, while hers were strained. It was clear that some of them knew about her actions, and the weight of their judgment was palpable. As the night wore on, I gathered everyone in the living room, silencing the hum of conversation. Mary stood beside me, her smile still firmly in place, though her eyes betrayed a flicker of unease. "Ladies and gentlemen," I began, my voice steady, "thank you all for being here tonight. It's a special occasion, and I wanted to share some important news with you." Mary's expression shifted to one of curiosity, then apprehension, as I continued. "First, I've made a significant career change. As of last month, I've left my job to start my own consulting business, giving me the flexibility to focus on what matters most." Polite applause rippled through the room, though Mary barely reacted. "And second," I said, my tone growing firmer, "I've made a decision about my future." With that, I stepped aside, and a woman emerged from the crowd, a red-haired attorney with a solemn expression. She walked straight up to Mary and handed her an envelope. "Mary Bader," the woman said calmly, "you've been served." The room fell silent as Mary stared at the envelope in disbelief. Her hands trembled as she opened it, her eyes scanning the contents. Slowly, the reality of what was happening began to sink in. "You're divorcing me?" she whispered, her voice cracking. "Yes," I replied simply. "I've spent the past few months watching you destroy our marriage, and I've had enough." Her face contorted with anger and humiliation. "You're doing this in front of everyone? How could you? How could I?" I echoed, my voice rising. "How could you, Mary? How could you walk out on me, betray our vows, and expect me to wait for you to figure things out?" The tension in the room was palpable as our guests exchanged uncomfortable glances. Some were clearly shocked by the revelation, while others nodded subtly, as if they'd seen this coming. Mary's family looked furious, their glares fixed on her. My own family, though silent, offered me quiet support with their presence. Mary, meanwhile, was unraveling. She launched into a tirade, blaming me, Margaret, and even her own insecurities for what had happened. But her words only served to alienate her further. Once the party was over and the guests had left, I sat alone in the living room, the envelope Mary had been served still lying on the coffee table. The weight of the evening pressed heavily on me, but for the first time in months, I felt a sense of closure. This was the beginning of a new chapter, one where I was no longer bound by the pain and betrayal of the past. In the weeks that followed, the divorce proceedings moved forward swiftly. Mary's attempts to contest the terms were unsuccessful, thanks to the mountain of evidence I had gathered. Her own friends and family urged her to accept the reality of the situation, and eventually, she signed the papers. I deleted the tracking apps and let go of the need to monitor her movements. She was no longer my concern. With the divorce finalized, I focused on rebuilding my life. I poured my energy into my new business, finding satisfaction in creating something entirely my own. My social circle expanded, and I rediscovered the joy of genuine connections without the shadow of betrayal looming over me. A year later, as I strolled through a street fair with someone new by my side, I realized how far I had come. The pain of the past had faded, replaced by a sense of peace and hope for the future. The journey hadn't been easy, but it had taught me resilience. I had learned to let go of the bitterness and embrace the possibilities ahead. And as the sun set on that new chapter of my life, I knew one thing for certain. I was finally free.